So we need to talk about the decline of Christianity.
Okay, so did a whole introduction of me and my faith journey. Um, I probably accepted Jesus in my heart when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Probably was speaking in tongues by the time I was a teenager. Um, and I believe I was baptized in my teens as well. Couldn't tell you when exactly. I'm not gonna lie, my childhood and teen years were not my favorite time. So I kind of block out those times in my life. So I'm sorry I don't have exact dates of different things. Um, but I'm looking down because I have my main phone. The one I have there doesn't have a SIM card, but this is my main phone, and it has my notes of why I feel people are leaving the church. Just the reasons that came off the top of my head after I saw that video. I would say that there's a loss of youth and there's a loss of zeitgeist. Zeitgeist is basically like the culture or the spirit of the age. I think that there's a lot of Christian people who grow up and they feel that there's a sense of loss. They feel like they didn't get to enjoy their time as young people because, you know, when you're in the church, there's a quote that comes from the Bible where it says, "You are in this world, but you are not of this world." And that is taken to represent that essentially you are coming in this world as ambassadors for God, and that you are not to, I don't want to say lower yourself, but I guess it is kind of like that. You don't want to get too involved in the affairs of this world. You want to separate yourself onto God. And so that can mean many things. That can mean not dressing a certain way. That can mean not speaking a certain way. That can mean not engaging in certain cultural aspects. I, as I think about it now, I could go on a whole list of things that were not allowed with our church journey. For instance, if I can give you an example, when I was in the third grade, I was new to the school. I moved a bunch of schools. Like, I went to like 12 different schools growing up. No lie. I could probably sit down and name them all for you. But I won't do that now. But in the third grade, it was a new school for me. I was trying to make friends. And all the girls there were... Britney Spears was the biggest thing. She was the biggest thing growing up. And all the girls wanted to sing Britney Spears and hang out and talk about and sing about Britney Spears. And so, of course, I tried to play along like I knew who Britney Spears was and mumble along the lyrics. Didn't work. Once those girls realized I didn't know who Britney Spears was, I didn't know her songs, oh, they were done with me. They didn't want to hang out at all. And this was a Christian school. We were at a Christian school. And yeah, I had no friends, pretty much no friends that year. And, you know, I think after a while growing up, I just made peace with the fact that I really wasn't going to have a lot of friends. You know, not everybody is able to understand that you're not able to go to their house, or that you're not able to consume certain content, or you're not able to participate in certain things. You know, people would like to dance in the playground and play dancing games, but you couldn't do that because people were watching, and you could get reported to your family that you were dancing at school, and that could be a problem. And of course, we all know how Caribbean parents like to correct their kids. I don't need to go into that right now. I'm seeing my summer tan versus my cover-up skin. It's fun. Can't wait for winter so that will even out. Anyway, but yeah, there can be a sense of loss, and the Christian argument for that is, well, you're focused too much on the world. You need to focus more into God and dig more into God and pray more and seek God more and read your Bible more, and your hunger for God will grow so much that everything else that's happening around you won't matter. That said, it's, I don't want to say this, but maybe I should. It's one thing when you're older and you've had all the experiences prior, and you come into church as an adult, because it's like, okay, you've already experienced what life has to offer, and you know that that's not what you want, and what you want is in the church. But it's a different experience when you're a second, I don't want to call it a second generation Christian, because technically everybody has a personal one-on-one relationship with God, but it's a different vibe when you're raised in the faith versus converting into the faith. Because when you convert into the faith, there's more of a radical change and transformation that happens to you, that it's like, usually you're in a dire spot, you seek God's face, and God radically changes your life for the better, and so you commit your life to him full time, versus somebody who was raised in church, where it's like your parents are the ones who are monitoring you and guiding you and making sure that you fit in their view of what Christianity is. And that happens, I think, a lot to a lot of people, especially pastors' kids. It can be very challenging, because you want to experience God for yourself, and you want to push towards building that relationship. But if that relationship doesn't look like the relationship that your parents have, it becomes a source of tension if they don't see you being as on fire for God as they are. It can quickly be a source of tension. And then there's almost a pressure to conform, or not just conform, but to perform, because now you're not just living a life where you are trying to serve God, you're now trying to serve God the way other people expect you to serve God. Because as a pastor's kid, and I'm sorry, this is getting to be more of a pastor's kid story than on my notes, but as a pastor's kid, people have expectations of you. Even even outside of church, even at school, people have expectations about you. If you say a word that they think you shouldn't say, if you do something people don't think you should do, it's all, oh, I thought you were a Christian. Why are you doing that? I thought you were a Christian. I thought you were doing that. And so then you realize you have to put on a mask for everyone, because everybody, once they see that you have certain labels on you, there's a list of rules and expectations that you have to follow that you weren't privy to, And so that can be a factor. But yeah, I really feel like the loss of youth and the loss of zeitgeist can be a strong factor. Like, it wasn't until I was in my 30s I noticed people kept making jokes about Dementors and Azkaban, and I was like, what is this stuff? I don't know what this is. And I had to Google it, and I realized, oh, these are Harry Potter references. And then I realized, oh, I'm never going to get their Harry Potter references, because of course Harry Potter has witches and wizards and witchcraft, and so, that's obviously not on the list of things we're allowed to consume as a child. And then you realize you missed out on whole book series. I swear they have I can't remember, is it a dozen books or so? How many books they have, how many movies they have. They have even an amusement park. They have so many things going on, and people still make references these days to these things, and they just fly over your head because you've never heard of this stuff before. And then it also makes it hard when you want to relate to people and you want to connect with people and communicate with people, because you can't relate to them on that deep. You can't relate to them because you don't speak their language. You don't have that shared cultural foundation or identity. And I would say that leads to a bit of isolation. Drawing closer to God will require some level of isolation. And maybe I shouldn't start on this one. I know the video's about to end, but I'll talk for a little bit longer. But yeah, so there's a bit of isolation because you're not involved in the culture of the world. You're not, and there's also an expectation that you're not to have close friends that aren't Christians. And some churches go even further to say that even if your friends are Christians, if they're not the same kind of Christian you are, they are not acceptable friends. And then other churches go even further and they say they have to be Christian, they have to be in your denomination, and they have to be at the exact same spiritual level you are. If not, you cannot be friends with these people.